baby, we're back. Let's go. Let's freaking go. Seth, we've made it. The long off season gets a 15-day reprieve. USF spring football is here, baby. Let's go.
Back in a big way. Back in a real big way.
Let's go. I know I spent my off season doing some mat drills, figuring out scheme, what I want to do. I'm excited. It's the dawn of a new era for USF football as Alex Golesh starts his first spring practice as the head man at USF. And still some coach speak, but as a guy who's as confident as he is in who he is, boy howdy, that presser today was maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I tried to catch it live. I don't think they streamed it, and then it wasn't up on YouTube when I was looking at it. But you were there live and in person.
I was. It's smallest violin in the world. It's one of the perks for getting fired yesterday. I was able to go out to practice and see the players, and then go to the press conference today. So it was, silver linings, right? And that's what we're here for. But it felt really good to be back out there. I hadn't been to a practice in a year and a half, just based on the job that I had. So it was good to be out there. Put sunscreen on before I left, and still was burnt. Didn't matter. So I try to be prepared, and I'll go back to the drawing board and figure it out for, I think, Thursday.
Day one for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But the press conference, I think a big section, a big chunk of the press conference was related to the $22 million being officially approved by the Board of Trustees today at their meeting. So on what they say, Tuesday, getting approved. So the design phase is a full go. We kind of figured that was going to be the case anyway. And then I guess finally on Twitter, some renderings started floating out that we saw back close to a month ago at this point in the Discord. Some interesting concepts for sure, but it was really kind of there was a large swath of that press conference was just him kind of discussing he wants the football operations center to be built expeditiously.
Yeah.
And talking about must-haves, wants, and then absolute necessities. So it was. If you guys didn't get a chance, it's on YouTube now. Go check it out. He goes really in depth. I think one of the bigger things that he mentioned was having the on-campus stadium is not a must-have to win games, but it's a must-have to get to the next level.
Yeah. That was one of the quotes I saw. I thought that was a really good quote in terms of, understanding and kind of conveying to the fan base that, listen, just because we don't have this doesn't mean we shouldn't be winning games, right? You can win without it, but in order to take that next step, and that would probably be, realignment, that kind of next step, it's important. So I thought it was interesting to hear him say that today, and really – he seems to be, and we've talked about it off air, he seems to be really confident and really kind of eliminating, not trying to build in a lot of excuses for how the season may or may not go. Now, maybe it's just because he's really confident and thinks they're going to do really well just because he's confident in himself, or he just kind of pretty direct guy and is like, we don't need to try to make excuses. We should be able to win here at the school. So, as that's kind of the impression I've gotten. This was your first time being around him. What were some of the impressions you got from seeing him in person?
It's he's funny. He's got a dry sense of humor. I guess I would say I'm like the dollar store looking version of Alex Golesh. But I think our sense of humor is probably pretty close. He's very dry and blunt in it. I think it works, and his confidence in himself feeds off of that, and I think that's why you heard Rashad Cheney and Donovan Jennings also on Tuesday talk about the swag that he brings to the program. To I want to, I think it was Rashad Cheney said I would run through a brick wall for the dude. He's got he's got a swag about him that is probably needed. I would say there hasn't been swag as a head coach at USF since Willie Taggart was just roaming the halls, and that
Well,
is needed.
I remember in Charlie Strong's last year, we were talking to guys on staff, and they couldn't believe how little confidence the players had.
Right.
How there was such a lack of confidence and lack of self-confidence amongst the players. And they basically, I've never been around guys from Florida that had no swag before. Like the guys were so like, I don't know if that was just part of the culture, but I remember distinctly hearing that. And that does seem to come from top down, right? If your coach is confident and maybe a little brash, that kind of trickles its way down. So he definitely seems to be a confident guy, confident in his process, confident in who he's hired and how he's building things. So it's good to have that kind of conviction, especially from a guy that's his first time being the head coach.
Right.
It's interesting. He seems like I also think he's a smart guy. So he's got a plan and he's thought about it. So he's confident in his plan and he's just going to try to go out and execute his plan. And that starts obviously before now, but now that you're really into the first practice of spring,
Right.
some of that stuff starts to get implemented.
And to your point about he has a plan, I was talking to some folks around the program Monday during practice. We were able to actually get up to the ends. We couldn't go on the sidelines because they had recruits out there and the players and whatnot, but we were on the end zones and was just kind of there was a really good vibe. But it's also the first day of spring, and Golesh even mentioned it during his press conference. All right, the energy was great on the first practice because it was the first practice. What does 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 look like? And then when you're at the tail end, what does 11, 12, 13, 14 look like as you're wrapping up? Do you still have that same energy? I think he's very much you better keep that same energy every single day, which is great. But to your point about planning, talking to the folks around the program, the guy's meticulous. He is like a down to the minute kind of planner, and I think that is probably going to serve him well. He kind of made a joke that some folks at the press conference maybe took a little bit too literally or seriously. He was like, "Yeah, I didn't really know what to do. I just kind of wandered around to each position unit because I'm usually either stuck with a position or one side of the ball." He went and hung out with the defense, and they kind of took it a little bit too literally. And he's like, "No, like I knew what I was doing. Like I had this plan, and went and looked and enjoyed his time with each side of the ball, which he typically never really got to do."
Yeah, that is a big transition when you go from being a coordinator or working on one side of the ball forever to being a head coach. How much do you put in on the other side of the ball? Is it just, do you travel around during practice and check on everybody? Are you working with a specific group? Everybody does a little differently. So I think that is an interesting transition, but it's nice to hear that he's got kind of some ideas on how he wants to do things. And he seemed from the get-go, and everything I'd heard about him from other people was that he was a really sharp guy, really smart guy. So that seems to be carrying through. Now, will it translate to a bunch of wins in the first year? I don't know. You got to see him in person, so you can kind of tell me where the expectations should be now. But he definitely seems like he's got a plan and they're going to execute it.
I'm still you better freaking prove it on the field. I don't care about the swag is great. I love it. Win some effing games. I don't care if you're
12-0. Discord Nathan is gone.
No, absolutely.
They were pumping. They had the hopium pumping through.
Oh yeah, man.
The
They
speakers at practice.
It was
What
nuts. It really was. They had the oxygen tanks of just 12-0 that was just sucking on it in the end zone. Win a game, and I think he knows it. He needs to freaking win, and I think that's why he made a point. Like the OCS is not why we can't win. We can win. Ray J is a great facility. It's everything. Like just freaking win. And I think he gets that. And another point to the planning, he said he went through he's gone through 3 wide receivers coaches before we even got to the first day of spring on Monday. Marcus Davis was initially hired. He was at the early signing day party. And then he left for Auburn, where he played. Matthew Middleton then took over. And then he left to go to Kansas State. Can't fault him. That's a P5 job, man. You take P5 jobs
and he's from Kansas as well.
Yeah, he's from Kansas City, I believe. And in comes Ladarian Washington, who had a cup of coffee at Western Kentucky. He got hired from Oklahoma in January. So he said he had a plan for it. It's unfortunate that he had to do it, multiple times before his first snap, but he said he had a plan, and it seems like he did. I think someone in our Discord, right when the Middleton stuff started happening, they jumped on this name, and it came to fruition. I thought that was pretty impressive, and got that confirmed maybe a day or two later in the Discord. Yeah. So
Tom McMahon threw out the LaDainian Washington way before everybody.
And then I believe Sean was able to confirm it. And
yeah, we got fans with sources in the Discord.
Look at that. Hashtag fans with sources. Let's go. What else really stuck out?
I wanted to ask you. I saw I don't know. I think it was in Discord. You put it where Nathan. I thought I was looking on Twitter, but then I realized, you're just going to put a lot of this info in the Discord. So if you want like live practice info, you need to be on the Discord. You said that the staff seems like there's a lot more staff and everything seems a little bit more organized. You said something to that effect, like all these staffers, and that's kind of goes, I think, to the planning side, and also how you're able to, when coaches leave, you're able to you have got a list of guys you'd like, but then you also have these guys backing them up that if you need to promote internally, you can, right? So you said it looked, pretty professionally organized there on day one with all the staff members out there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got basically an entire fleet of recruiting people now that you didn't really have prior. Talking to people who've been around the program that are still around the program, 2 or 3 coaches later, they said they told me it's a lot more professionally run. It's like a professional, like pro team organization. It used to be there was, the guy I was talking to yesterday, see on the video, and then Golesh, but now there's the guy I was talking to is now like the pinky, and then there's like 4 other guys in front of him before, like there's things in place. He's got like basically a bookkeeper. He also has the chief of staff. Like there's people in place to make sure that, the trains run on time basically. And we'll see if it works, but at least there's a plan in place. And they said that, there's some cultural stuff that they want to fix up, but not nearly as bad as when Jeff Scott did take over in December of 2019. So I guess thanks, kind of.
I mean, they're in a better position, as for as much flack as Jeff Scott gets, and deservedly so. They seem to be in a better. It's hard to say you could be in a better position when you won so few games over a 3-year period, but it seems like they're in a better position now than they were when he came in. Not obviously not from a wins and loss perspective, but from other perspectives. So I think that helps a little bit, and then you can have somebody come in and kind of. He really just kind of reset the roster, I thought. Now, not all of it was good. As we heard on signing day, where you got 14 safeties and 7 offensive linemen, and you want to get to 16 to 20 offensive linemen, that's not great. But you do have some talented guys on this team, and I think a lot more explosiveness on this team than there was back, which is going to be key in this offense. But there's still some with the transfer portal, there's still some holes, and he mentioned a couple, I think, in the press conference.
Yeah, offensive line is one. They're trotting out 13 for spring practice. They've got a couple of freshmen that'll come in later, but they're hoping for that 16 to 20 number is what he mentioned in the press conference on Tuesday. That's what you want to have. He said he came into 7 due to graduations and transfer portal, and he said that was downright criminal. Negligence, I believe, is the word he used. So they're getting their numbers up there, especially in wide receiver. Now, Joe missed significant time in 2022. He's still recovering. Joffrey Brown missed, I think, the last game and a half of the season. He's still recovering. He was in a red non-contact jersey on Monday. Joe was not, but he was off to the side working on the treadmills. So they're after you're still pretty thin there. You've got Naeem Simmons, who you brought in from Wagner, Seth Jones, a couple other guys. USF Terry is still around, but there's not a lot of production there. When your returning producer is Sean Atkins, there's still a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I wrote up the wide receiver preview, and going back and looking through, the number one thing I thought is, man, if this was before the transfer portal, you'd be bringing back a really good recruiting class or a really good receiving group. But with those two guys gone, even like Brian Battie was one of your top receivers last year. You lost a ton of receptions in the portal. Like you said, Sean Atkins was the number one guy coming back. I don't even know if he's on scholarship right now. I know he was. He's been on. He's been off. I don't know if he's on scholarship now. Then you had a Joe. I didn't realize he was still hurt, or it was still lingering. Him and Joffrey Brown were 2 of your top 3 returners. And then USF Terry is – with those 2 down, it's Sean Atkins and USF Terry, your top 2 receivers coming back. So if they didn't get those transfers in, they'd be in some trouble right now in terms of depth. But luckily they got a few guys in, and then there's more help on the way.
Yes.
It's just not here in spring. So and that's a position, I think I even mentioned it in the piece, I would imagine. And after hearing him talk, I would imagine they'd go after more in the portal in May and try to see if there's more to be had there.
Right.
I thought that might be one before spring started that would be on there, but definitely after kind of hearing where their depth is and guys being injured, I would imagine they try to go after one of those in the portal and just add a little bit more depth to this group because it's pretty thin right now.
It really is. Talking to folks around the program on Monday, they said maybe after spring, maybe try to bring in 6 guys, maybe as many as 6 guys in that post-spring football signing window, transfer portal window. So they've got, I think it's this year and next year with COVID years, and then it kind of starts to reset back to some normalcy. I know this year the NCAA, because of all the transfers, COVID stuff, they kind of took the cap away from the signing class. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent fixture going forward. It would kind of suck for some of the lower level guys. I think like the actual teams, I think the top end of the lower teams are going to be a little bit worse, but
you've got to put the cap back on for parity. Like you can't have, I know Florida, just because I have to keep up with them as well. I think they've got 30 new guys on scholarship this year. You can't be having, and they weren't even like the number 1 team. There's like Charlotte's got like 50, right, or something crazy.
Yeah, Charlotte.
There's
Charlotte
so
really
much turnover, and then
roster.
allowing a team like Alabama just to be able to gobble up other teams' scholarship players that have proven themselves a little bit. It can't be good. You don't want to limit players' ability to transfer, but I think it would be helpful if you took away where you didn't have unlimited options. In terms of just some parity. Like if you want to transfer, that's fine, but being able for everyone to go wherever they want and just load up at one place is not going to help parity, which I think is probably needed a little bit in college football. So I think that cap I think they'll bring that back.
Yeah, agreed. And then there was a couple since we're kind of on rules and stuff, the couple of rule changes Golesh did discussed them. Said that the penalty, end of the first and third, big whoop doesn't like. I don't. Was there a specific case in 2022
No,
that like someone got hurt? Because it makes no sense. Like I get trying to cut down on time, but what are you saving? What, a minute? Maybe every
not yeah, like
5 games.
yeah, it doesn't happen that often. So I mean, to me, it makes sense that okay, you don't need an untimed down when there's more time left in the, we're just moving to the next quarter. It's not like we reset the ball or anything like we do at halftime where the
Right.
game's over at the end of the game. So it makes sense. It probably should have been done a while ago, but yeah, it doesn't really move the needle very much. I personally, I hated all 4 rule changes they proposed. I don't think they should do any of them. I don't know anybody who's like complaining about game length. I mean,
TV.
Just TV people. You only get 12 of these things guaranteed. Let's make them last, even if they're not, even if your team's not winning, you only get exactly. Get off my college football lawn. Yeah, there's a lot of things that other things they could do to waste time, like
the touchdown, TV timeout, kickoff, TV timeout.
Yeah,
first, like you could
that's
cut that out.
Yeah.
And Golesh kind of mentioned he wasn't really sure what it's going to do. The other rule change, I guess, that got approved was not stopping the clock after first downs
until the final 2 minutes of the
half. Until inside the final 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarter. He said it's not really going to do much on our end, just the way that the tempo is. And I'll get to the tempo here in a second. But he said it may help shorten the game for some teams who try to slow it down. I think kind of a prime example of that would be the Florida game last year. That was USF's entire game plan: is run the ball, control the clock, get first downs, keep moving the change. It's you probably save like 4 or 5 seconds, maybe a clock stoppage every first down or so. So shortening the game a little bit more could help in the long run for the Armies, the Navies, the teams that are going up against juggernauts who want to get figure it out, whatever.
You may have some bigger problems, bloody farts. I don't know. Like you may want to get that checked out.
Yeah, you may want to.
There might be some bigger problems for you than USF football.
I mean, geez.
But yeah, I hate all the rule changes. Why are we trying to make college football not college football? I don't know. Why are we trying to make it the NFL with reducing the time for games?
Right.
It's different, and we like that it's different. That's kind of what makes it enjoyable. If you just make it the NFL junior, the players aren't nearly as good. It's not going to be nearly as fun to watch. Like if you adopt the other one where the clock wouldn't stop after incompletions, why would anybody ever run the ball? You just throw the ball every play. It totally changes the game totally.
Right.
So there'd be no reason, like at the end of the games, there'd be no reason to run the ball. You just keep throwing the ball, and it kind of would fundamentally change the game. So I hate them all. I can tolerate the first two. The second one I don't like, or the third one, the running the clock after first downs, I don't particularly like, but whatever. I do like, actually, you know what? I do like not letting people take back-to-back timeouts to like ice people. I think that's stupid that people can take 3 timeouts in a row. That's just a waste of time. So I do agree. That's one I actually agree with. So
yeah, I enjoy that one. Now, is it going to count for say the offense takes a timeout to stop the clock? Is it and then they send out the field goal unit? Can the defense then take a timeout?
I think it's the same team. I think it's the same team. So to eliminate the guy calling a timeout to ice the kicker, and then they get back out there and he calls another timeout because he's got 3 left. Yeah,
right. Gotcha.
I think we saw that the last 3 years a few times.
Yeah.
Or I didn't use my timeouts. I might as well use them now.
Must be nice to have timeouts at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I hope if Golesh is such a planner, he better have a freaking clock guy. If he doesn't, boy howdy, I'm gonna be pissed.
I know Colin will be ready for the clock guy.
Oh man,
He loves the clock stuff.
he does. He truly does. Let's see what else. What else we want to talk about? We're gonna get into. We wrote up spring practice previews for each position. Nobody else is doing that. We're it. We still do good content on the website as well as the Discord. I think our thought process behind that, I'll give you guys a little inside baseball, is the chat is great for quick stuff, kind of sparking a conversation, but there still needs to be a spot for the long form. Hey, let's get these previews out, a game recap, things like that, important stuff. So that'll be on the site as well. But the scoopage stuff will end up in the Discord before it goes to the website. So you guys will have it first, and we're still learning as we go about the desire for this to continue. I think there's close to 150 people already in the Discord.
Right on that number. So
thank Christ.
Live breaking in. USF beats Pitt.
Thank God, man. I know they went over all the sports on yesterday's show. I'm not even going to mention one. You know what? Quick tangent. What the F? Absolutely pooping the bed today in the quarterfinal. Are you kidding me?
You'd rather lay the stinker now than lay it in the NCAA tournament. How would you feel if they ripped through the conference tournament and then played like they did today in the first round of the NCAA tournament? That'd feel a lot worse, right?
No, I'd be like, oh, a typical women's basketball season.
But maybe they'll turn it around and go like.
I'd rather I mean, honestly, man, I'd rather the conference titles at this point, right? They've got 2 regular season titles and a tournament title, and they haven't made it past the second weekend. Something's got to change. If this was the spark that gets them to get past the second week, the second, or gets into the second weekend, awesome. But
they just a little motivation. Little anger. You don't want to go in on too high of a high,
I disagree. Ask South Carolina.
Well, playing devil's advocate here.
Oh, terrible. Win the games you play. That's the goal here.
And you could do that too if you wanted to. We're trying something different.
Oh my gosh.
Going angry. I would imagine old Jose is not gonna be too easy on them.
No, there may be another violation in his future. Oh my gosh, that's just it.
I do want to say I put the game on at work, and they started to come back when I put it on. No big deal. But one of those referees did look like Daniel DePrado. Do you think it could have been? I think he's the one that called the T. Could it have been a DeProt bro? Maybe a relative. Revenge.
Bitter he didn't get the special teams job.
Revenge on the University of South Florida in any way you can get it. Yes. Who
knows? So frustrating. But let's see, what do we want to discuss next? I'm going to open book. If you guys want to ask questions, go ahead. We'll kind of start with the spring preview stuff that we kind of wrote about.
Yeah, Nate's been on site, on the scene.
Yes. Let's start with quarterbacks. You wrote quarterbacks.
I did.
And
I didn't anticipate Gary participating at all.
Yeah, that was a nice surprise. He had his checkup last week. Things are progressing. He's not going to throw, but he'll be able to do some running stuff, indie stuff. So there's that. Don't expect Trey Marsh to likely suit up again. There was some pessimism Monday at practice that he
will that be a school again. Will that be a school decision or like a doctor, or is that going to be his decision?
It could be a bit of both. I think Smoke Davis, he had a neck issue. I think
he couldn't get cleared by the school, right? Because he's trying to transfer.
Correct. So there's that. He's got to think about his future. I know, as a football player, I think Rashad Cheney said it best on Tuesday when he was discussing his injury and what what football means to him. And I mean, it's all these guys know. It's so you get that yanked away, and you're kind of just flapping in the breeze, so to speak, and it's such a freak thing to happen, right? And so he's got a lot to ponder. But the guys who are out there right now, Gunnar Smith, I almost said Jordan Smith, but he's long since departed, unfortunately for Steeg and his fantasy team. But Byron Brown.
It really almost happened last year for Steeg. We were close.
Yeah,
they laughed at me. They called me a madman.
They were getting low on bodies. And then Coastal Carolina transfer Bryce Archie as well. So 3 scholarship guys right now throwing. And then you got Izzy Carter coming in the fall. So quarterback room looks.
Izzy Carter already thrown with future teammate Jaquan Smith, right?
Yep.
Out in California.
That was pretty neat.
Yeah. So how did those guys look today or Monday rather? Did they anybody stand out, or is it kind of? I mean, what did you get to see? I guess would be my first question. I know there's some of it was probably warm ups, right? But like, what else did you get to see football wise?
So we got to see some warm ups, and then basically indie drills, kind of throwing, thrown on air, I guess. Quarterbacks and wide receivers, running backs working on cutting, offensive linemen doing some stuff. Quarterback wise, I want to save judgment. Golesh said as much today. Quarterback is more of a body of work thing, especially this spring. After rushing to judgment after one day is probably not best suited. I think if you're in the Discord, you know what I think, and that'll stay in the Discord until someone doesn't keep it in the Discord. It seemed like there was a calming presence with Gary out there. It seems like the guy who's been through it all and is going through it again, helping Byron, Bryce, and Gunnar kind of take snaps, figure this out. It's a new offense for basically all of them. Golesh said on Tuesday, the reason they want to bring in Bryce Archie is, he's been in college, so he's kind of got that college field when he kind of knows where he's at. Is a year ahead of a high school guy. The terminology is a little bit different, but the general scheme of the offense that he was in at Coastal is the same enough that there's not too much of a learning curve. It's day one. They were good. They threw 3 interceptions, so there was that. Golesh wasn't too happy about that, but he was happy for the defense that they created turnovers. So it's one of those things. Was the offense just off on day one, or is the defense picking up and improving? It's one of those things.
But
yeah, defense is going to be 85 Bears. Got it.
That's right, baby. Totally.
And he also mentioned wide receivers, kind of give them a couple weeks because that's the hardest in his offense. He explicitly said this is the hardest learning curve for anyone in the offense because it's more landmark oriented and spacing. If I'm not mistaken, is that
they put a lot on them to, and I put that in our preview of receivers, kind of that. Why I thought maybe they might go out and get some guys in the transfer portal because they put a lot on these guys. So if they can't handle it, they're going to need to find guys that can. I think they have a lot of site adjustments and kind of understanding where the space is going to be in the defense, and it's their job to get in that space. So they kind of have to understand how people are trying to cover them a little bit, which, sometimes it's just like, hey, this is the play call. I've got to post. That's all I need to know. Right. In some offense, this one is more, I think, okay, what's the coverage? Where's it? Okay, is it middle field open? Okay, I need to run here. Mm-hmm. Is the safety rotating away from me? Okay, maybe I need to do this. Is the corner backing off? I need to throttle down. I think there's some of that in this offense. Now, I haven't gotten a chance to hear it from like a guy that runs it a ton, hear how they explain it. I was hoping they would do a coaching clinic and I try to jump up there, but then maybe that's still in the cards. But from my understanding is that there's a lot of the receivers in terms of reading coverage and running routes based on coverage. And in a lot of places, it's just this is your route, run it no matter what the coverage is. So there's a few adjustments here and there, but for the most part, you got one of these two. So that would be, like he said, there may be a slow start there, a learning curve. But one thing I've noticed is that kind of everywhere they go, just starting looking back at when Heupel kind of started with this kind of system at Missouri, they picked it up really quick once he started. It seemed like the first year guys were able to pick this up and you were able to perform pretty quickly. Like Tennessee, same thing. UCF, same thing. So I think it's something they can learn quickly. It's not like crazy hard where it's like a 2-year learning curve. They can learn it this first year, but it's probably not going to be the first week. It's going to take a little bit of time to understand exactly how they like to attack things.
Yeah, I think so too. And I know there was a question about the front seven depth. Yeah, let's do the trenches first. Let's
Okay.
we'll start offensive line. So Donovan Jennings still recovering from his ankle injury that he suffered game 4 of 2022. He's back for his 6th year, 5th offensive coordinator for those keeping score at home. And I asked him today, is there any similarities from any of the offenses that you've been in? He said, not really. The tempo's a lot faster than maybe even the Gilbert offense in 2018, right? It was that was a pretty high tempo offense. Kerwin's was it was pretty high tempo, but not as fast. And then Trickett's, Charlie Weiss's was not really fast at all. I think Trickett more so because they had to shorten the game as much as possible and they couldn't really go fast. And probably same with Weiss, but also Weiss being bad at his job probably didn't help things much either.
It wasn't great.
So there's that. A couple offensive linemen that Golesh and people around the program really mentioned. The Serbian Nikola, I'm going to mess up his last name. Nikolai. I can't remember. You get someone help me out, man. There's too many. There are 34 new guys, I believe, in spring. I can't even. Nikola Milovic. Milovic.
It could be Milovic.
Yeah, he's a freshman from Serbia. He was at Clearwater Academy International, kind of where Joe was before he went to Clemson. That's becoming like the new IMG almost for
and they had a
students.
couple kids there. I think they had a couple kids from there on campus for practice on Monday. So they're trying to dig in there and have a presence there as well as IMG. So just as a quick aside.
Yep. A lot of Chamberlain was out there. A couple other schools were out there that I noticed on Milovic.
Nailed it.
Thank you. I was so close. He's got a nasty edge to him. He's very competitive. They think he's going to be a dude. Same with Cole Skinner. They think he's going to be a dude. Darrell Bailey got a shout out. RJ Perry is massive. He's like
I asked you who was the biggest human being you saw, and it was him, right?
It was not even close. Like RJ Perry is massive. He's a big freaking dude.
Where was he playing? Was he playing inside or was he playing?
He was playing. So let's see. He was playing. Trying to figure out. He was following Dono, so he was playing left tackle in the trench drills that they were running, right? So Cole Best was the center, then they had 2 guys and then 2 guys. So it was kind of he was cycling at left tackle with Dono. He is as big as advertised. Golesh said he showed flashes. He's a big dude for sure. And the offensive line, I think there's going to be 5 or 6 more guys who are 300 plus pounds this year compared to last year. It's a bigger unit. phrasing. They compared to last year, which is good. It's starting to turn into a college program here size wise. So that was a good spot. But again, you're replacing 4 guys. You're replacing 3 guys who graduated and a guy who went and transferred to Duke. So your offensive line is going to be a question mark. You got to see it. They don't put on pads until after spring break. They don't start hitting until after spring break. I think Friday is the first day that they put pads on, if I'm not mistaken. And then after spring break, which is next week, they'll start clapping the pads. So you don't know how they actually will look, but intimidation factor getting off the bus. RJ Perry is going to be the first one off the bus, man.
Well, there you go. Well, that's helpful. How about on the defensive side of the ball? Did anybody stand out there? I know Chaney is he back full go? Right, he's back.
He's not back. He's pretty close to 100%. I think they're going to hold him out for spring. Because he broke his fibia last season, so he's still working back from that, but he feels good. I asked him a couple guys who from end of November to first day, who's kind of made the biggest body change, who's kind of shifted their mindset, who's kind of stood out. He mentioned 2 guys. He said Nick Baggs has grown leaps and bounds. And I think that was probably something that was maybe alarming for us last season. He just was kind of non-existent for large swaths of the season for the Bulls, even though the depth was so depleted. He just wasn't a factor in the rotation.
Especially how highly they spoke of him coming in as a transfer from a conference school. They thought it seemed like the way they talked about it, he was a plug and play, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason.
He played quite a bit at Temple toward the beginning of the year before he transferred out. He put up numbers. So that was the one that was kind of jarring, I guess, throughout the season. Like, why isn't this clicking for him? So good to see that he's, at least according to Chaney, kind of stepping up, taking a bigger role. And then also Jason Vaughn, who led the team with 5 sacks last season. He said that he's going to take that next step. He may be the best defensive lineman in the room. Another guy to obviously kind of watch out for, Lloyd Summerall, the Florida transfer. I got a comparison. Aaron Lynch, freak-like athlete like Aaron Lynch was for the Bulls. So that kind of piqued my attention. It was great to see Kevin Patrick out there. He's got a nice little beard. It's a really great like chin beard.
The Lincoln.
Yeah, pretty much. It looks phenomenal.
Summerall was a guy that was playing a good bit at Florida. It's not like he transferred because he didn't play at all. He was playing a decent bit, especially after Brenton Cox was kicked off the team. He got more and more rep, but more and more playing time. But he was playing a decent bit. I think maybe he wanted to leave for a bigger role, and to be closer to home. Maybe I think he played at Lakeland his senior year, but it's not like he wasn't playing at Florida. He was playing it. He was playing a little bit. So, and was not unproductive. He had some. He put up a few stats. He had some. It wasn't like he was just on the field taking up space. He could play a little bit. So I'm really kind of interested to see how he does, because it's not like you're just getting a guy that's a total like reject, P5 reject. He was playing at Florida quite a bit. So he might be able to come in and really help.
Yeah, and then TJ Harris on Monday, he looked pretty big. He looked stout. There was not, especially for the offensive lineman and defensive lineman, the first couple of days. You can't really compare anything. Like, I'm not a technique guy along the offensive line or defensive line at all. I know just the base level, and I think those are probably the 2 harder positions to evaluate. I think for people who are not either offensive linemen or offensive coaches, to try to figure out, okay, what are they doing? Because you don't know what the technique or the scheme or the play call was. That's kind of the hardest judge. So I'm looking for size. I know what fast looks like. right? I mean, you can point it out like, all right, that guy's fast. He's got a good first step, but other than that, technique wise, you're asking the wrong guy. You'll never catch me talking about some dude's technique because I'd be straight up lying to you. But he's got a good first step. He's got a good punch. They were doing some bag work. He's pretty nimble, so I'm excited to see what he can do. Where he kind of fits into the defense. They're going to be 3 down. They're going to be 4 down. They're going to be, every defensive coordinator's favorite line is, we're going to be multiple
and aggressive.
Multiple and aggressive. We're gonna hit hard. We're gonna make them feel us. They're gonna, they don't want to come over the middle against us. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And to the linebacker question regarding the front seven, didn't really see much. I was kind of focused in on offensive line, quarterbacks, running backs, because, well, there's a lot to replace there. And, a lot of the linebackers and stuff are the same guys that were here last year.
DJ Gordon looked large.
He did.
In the pictures I saw. So there's that.
There's that. Hopefully they look like they took their vitamins and then some this offseason. For the running backs, I wrote up the running back preview. Let me clear my voice. Naquan Wright, much bigger than I thought he'd be. He's 5'9", 205 easy. Maybe bigger. Like that dude's a guy.
He was an interesting case. So he was a guy that in high school, I think he tore his ACL his junior year or senior year. He was a guy that had been really productive in his high school career before he got hurt. So there was some thought that, okay, he's really should be a really highly rated guy, but he got hurt. Because I remember, I think Florida took him. He was like a 3-star. And there's some people like, I've seen him play. He's a 5. He's, before he got hurt, he was a 5-star. So there's that, because he had a really good career until his injury, right? And then at Florida, he was just kind of splitting time. But he always made plays. Was really good in the passing game at Florida. And then he played he started to really come on quite a bit on that 2020 team with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts. And then towards the end of that year, he was heavily in the rotation with Malik Davis, the Tampa Jesuit guy, and Damian Pierce. Both of those guys played a good bit in the NFL last year. So he was in the rotation with those two. So he's got some talent. He's another one it'll be fun to see kind of what he can do in this role. I think this offense probably fits him pretty well too. And if he's can kind of help replace a little bit of the Brian Battie, you've got some other guys, and you previewed them. There's some talent still at that position there. It's just some injuries and other stuff. You're not quite sure exactly what you're going to get, right?
Exactly. I think the coaching staff kind of thought it was going to be as close to a 1-for-1 kind of trade for Battie for Wright that they probably could get in the portal. They did the best that they could. I think Quan Powell needs to step up. Kelly Joyner needs to come back from his injury, and then it seemed like he got the yips when he finally got back in the rotation late in the year. I mean, just literally
my fantasy team still hasn't recovered.
Literally got the ball taken from him in that Temple game. I think that was probably the moment Jeff Scott knew he was getting fired. It was interesting. And the guy, in 2021 averaged, I think, over 6 yards a carry, had a couple 100-yard rushing games. I think that 2020 season against Central Florida, him and I think it was Battie and Joyner and someone else ran for 100 yards apiece. In that
it wasn't Mangum, was it?
No, that surprisingly high scoring 2020 season finale.
Yeah.
He was able to put up numbers, and I kind of said at the beginning of the preview, going into 2022, you would have been fine with Mangum, Battie, Joyner, Dukes being the guy, and it just so happened, Joyner got hurt in fall camp. Mangum got hurt basically in the Florida game, and Petit took over, and I don't think you get that season from Petit if those guys are healthy, and which is
No.
probably the frustrating part because it was kind of clear early on that he was the best running back on
Yeah,
the
I think we looked
roster.
at each other during the when he started extending minutes, and we're like, I think he might be the best guy.
Right. So, with Mangum now at Michigan State, Petit at Auburn, you're looking for that RB1, and it seems like it's Naquan, right? And you've
Joyner's got a similar story to Naquan a little bit. I remember when I was going to the pressers, and this might have been maybe even before I was going to the pressers. I heard Strong say if Kelly Joyner didn't get hurt in high school, he wouldn't be here.
Mhm.
Like he got hurt. He was unbelievable in high school because I was coaching in the area he played, so I saw a decent bit of him. He was unbelievable in high school. It was crazy. We played a couple teams after they played, and then he got hurt, and his recruiting kind of tailed off. But he was a guy that was like running for like 2,000 yards plus, crazy good. So I think it's a kind of a similar situation. I've always kind of been waiting on him to explode a little bit, and you've seen flashes of it. You've seen it for a game or two. You've seen it for like a drive or two. But if he could put it all together, and kind of get back to that form he showed,
Right.
you could have a couple really good backs. It's
Yep.
just for whatever reason hasn't been able to put it together yet. But he can go when he's
Mhm.
healthy.
Yeah. Then Mikey Dukes is probably the one question mark. I think for me, where does he fit in this offense? I think he averaged 3.4 yards a carry last season. Um, scored a handful of touchdowns. I think he caught eight balls, if I'm not mistaken, as a receiver. Running backs really aren't used as receiving threats in this offense. So, kind of looking through Tennessee, I think the running backs had like 12 to 20 catches combined as a room last season. Not really what they did. So where does he fit in? Um, Yeah, doesn't seem explosive enough. I think you may be right. I think he could turn into a short yardage guy, but then what do you do with baby Allstott? I think he showed flashes in Jason Albritton, and then you bring in Dominic Canella from North Dakota State, who is a bigger back as well, and he's rushed for I think 2,500 yards and 28 career games or something like that, or 1,800 yards in 28 career games, something like that at North Dakota State. He was a steady force. He rushed for a few touchdowns. Where does he fit in?
Yeah.
So it's that the running back room, wide receiver, got to figure out why. I mean, the entire offense, quite frankly, is a question mark, especially in this scheme because of how much they had to replace. And so I'm excited to see what spring brings for this offense and see if there's anybody that stands out. That's what I'm most excited about. The defense, they're probably not going to be good. I'll take not last,
Double
frankly,
digits would be a big win.
but it's just gonna be so interesting to see how many people they had to replace and see what they do and how they fit together. Because so many of these guys they've played, but they haven't really played together. Like Darrell Bailey, Mike Lofton, they've played in spurts, but never next to each other. Or now you've got a new center for the first time in 5 years, so it's going to be. Here's the thing, though. There's like two more teams this season, so they could technically get worse.
Be worse.
They could technically get worse.
It's a good semantical argument. If they're 131st, they could be 133rd next year. But you could also say, well, they were last, so they can't be worse than last. But yes, it's very easy to be better. It's another one. If you get in the double digits, you're feeling pretty good. So get the big old 9-9.
Yeah. Yeah. So Gunnar Greenwald State, I see. Yes. He was never a question mark. I think he was like hurt or something. That was the one that always kind of confused me toward the end of the season. He was, unlike Xavier Weaver, he was on the sidelines for UCF.
Yeah.
Like he was around. I think there was something else going on. But let's lead into the tight ends. Boy, howdy, were they not good last season? Either underutilized or just underperformed
Yeah, they weren't really
completely.
used very much. They'll be asked to do some similar things this year, which they'll be moved around quite a bit, and they moved them around a decent bit last year. They'll be asked to be blockers. They'll be asked to go out wide and block, go out wide and run routes. So
I don't think there's a Princeton fan on this roster, though.
I mean, Greenwald was a guy that was really highly rated as a recruit. At times, you've seen flashes. It just he hasn't been the guy yet, or hasn't put it all together. But he was a guy that, coming in was a really highly rated recruit, was a big athlete. Yeah, they're definitely already recruiting the next great USF tight end. But I'm excited to see Greenwald as he grows a little bit. That's one thing. Like, let's not be too quick to throw some of these guys out. He's going to be a junior, right? Or is he going to be a redshirt sophomore?
He may be a redshirt. Maybe a redshirt.
Yeah, let's
sophomore.
not be. That's the other. Like, when you're not recruiting at the Georgia and Alabama level, you're not going to see a ton of impact freshmen come in and be able to play right away. So, let these guys develop. He might. He was highly rated, but he wasn't like an instant impact guy. So I think this offense can give him a chance to flourish. Maybe he's a guy I'm still have hopes for to do something because of how much hype he kind of came in with, and they were really excited to have him. So I'm excited to see him in the future.
And they bring in Weston Wolf from Maryland, who has one career reception.
Yeah.
But he was very productive in high school at Venice, right? That's where
Venice
where
High School is super productive. His brother's a starting quarterback at ODU, but he was like really, really highly touted as well. Obviously, went to Maryland, who recruits pretty well. For whatever reason, didn't see the field. I know they play a ton of receivers out there, throw the ball around a ton. But he's another guy I think he's got a good frame and a good build. Right. And has had some production, it was super productive, like you said, at the high school level. So he'll be another guy I have my eye on. I think, maybe the raw talent level with, Greenwald another year, and then kind of who you lost and who you brought in probably went up at tight end. But we got to see some production, right?
Yep. And then there's one more person who they brought in under the radar after national signing. After they brought in transfer Tegan Martin, who's a 6'6", 226 freshman who initially signed with Liberty. I guess I was trying to figure it out. I think he was at Liberty last year, but he's still listed as a straight up freshman in the classroom, freshman and eligibility wise. I still don't understand how that one works. So if anyone in the comments can figure it out, please let me know. But he was a 3-star recruit out of Minnesota. He was one of the top players in the state of Minnesota and went to Liberty, and now he's here. Again, another scholarship tight end. I think that brings your total up to 4.
Had an offer from Iowa State coming out of high school.
Yes. So clearly, Joe Gordon and those guys are probably pretty familiar with them. We'll see how that shakes out. I think Gunner is your leading returner. He had 4 catches for 37 yards. But Jason Littlejohn catch per touchdown ratio last season was 100%, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. From the College of the Sequoias out in California. So just unproven stuff that like USF has historically underutilized tight ends. Last year was just off the charts.
There weren't a lot of catches to go around.
No, there really weren't. I mean, when you've got, Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn and guys like that, they kind of plug up a lot of the target share. And when you're running the ball as well as Petit did, it, brings, the amount of options and running through four different quarterbacks or however many it ended up being.
When you're drawing up your game plan and you're thinking, okay, these are the guys I got to get the ball to. Tight end was way down that list, right? Just not no slight to them, but you had some really good skill players that you're like, I want to get the ball to them. So that's no fault of their own. It's just kind of how it goes, right? So as our dearly departed OC, Mr. Trickett, was going through his game plan, he's probably thinking, okay, let's get Xavier Weaver a touch. Let's get Jimmy Horn a touch. Petit, maybe mixing a Mikey Dukes, maybe mixing a quarterback run. And then go back to the top, right? That's why we had the wheel like that for a reason last year.
Yes, and it was effective.
The wheel was effective.
I'm excited to see what the wheel looks like this season. I think the wheel
throw deep, throw deep,
yeah,
throw screen,
yeah. So we'll see. Honestly, I mean, we've been going at this for an hour. There's really not much else to really discuss. I mean, we're day in. We did some position previews.
DBs got to see 20 minutes, right?
Right. It ended up being 30, which was nice.
That's good.
So I think we saw a little bit more. I saw Brad Cecil and Rashawn Yates out there, cheering on the offensive line. So that was good to see. I think their pro days like March 29th or something like that.
Okay.
I think there's, from what I understand, only 6 guys so far. So that kind of tells you what the talent level was like.
Tracks.
We
hit Heath. We hit the OCS a little bit in the beginning, just the approval of the design process. We didn't really talk about the renders that were out there or that kind of been floating around. But I don't know if we're going to talk about those just yet.
I think the OCS probably deserves its own conversation because there's a lot of minutia. I think Stieg was probably the best guy to ask these questions to.
He's been pretty locked in on the entire process. He's been talking with like the Live Oak, who's a great follow on Twitter, also in the Discord, dropping knowledge. So
maybe bring the Live Oak in here, get Stieg and just kind of do a little roundtable about the OCS and absolutely. I mean,
make a decision, Nathan. Hurry. Byron Brown or Bohannon after day one?
Byron Brown was allowed to throw the ball, so I'm going to go with Byron today. And that's based solely on, if Byron's best ability is availability, his right arm availability, then I'm taking it.
There you go. Yeah, no, Stieg was I think Stieg we need to bring him in for OCS talk. He's been kind of on it from the beginning in terms of when stuff would be announced. He's kind of sussed it out by looking through, board of trustees meetings, all that kind of stuff. So, we'll get him in here to talk OCS stuff. I would imagine now the design process has been approved that you'll see something
soon.
If I was doing it, I'd probably, depending on when like the spring game was played, like if it's like broadcast, it would be cool to have something to talk about there, but I'm not doing it.
Really cool, like a halftime ceremony breaking the ground.
It's
at Corbett.
That's an even better idea.
But hey, I'm just talking out loud. Have giant renderings at each entrance.
Yeah, I think that would be a good time if like the stuff that's going around is legit, which
it is.
It seems like it is, right? Because I saw we had some people say that's been going around in kind of the bigger donor circles for a little bit. That maybe they'll be pretty far, a little bit further along in the process than it seems, and able to release stuff. I have no idea though. I'm just throwing a guess out as how I would do it if I had something to roll out. When would be a good time to do it? maybe when I got like national eyes on me, if they do put the game on like ESPN or something, ESPN2, ESPNU, whatever, if they broadcast your spring game, you have national eyes, that'd be kind of cool to debut that information then. I think it'd be smart.
Yeah.
Tell the recruits to watch, see all that kind of stuff. And worst case scenario, you just stream it because you are streaming the spring game this year. So
last USF player drafted, I've been racking my brain here for a minute. Was Mitch drafted? I don't think he was.
I think he was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah. Deidrin Sanat, maybe? 2018. Yeah, it must have been them. It must have been the MVS Deidrin year. So, oh, man.
Mark Scantling.
5th rounder, right?
Because he was a 5th rounder.
And Sanat was a third
rounder. Yep. So technically MVS
in 2018. There was no one from that 2019 team worth drafting, or that 2018 team worth drafting. Dearness was an undrafted free agent. Yeah, nobody.
I've got the list. That's the list.
That's the list. Whew.
MVS was the last one, 2018, 5th round.
Good Lord. I will say, so Eric, why are we giving hints for our spring game? I will say Golesh was asked about who had the interceptions today, and he's like, no, I'm not telling you that. So there's
he's got a little bit of it. He's a little paranoid.
Marlon Mack was 2017.
Yep. Mack was 2017, then Rodney Adams, Kofi, is it Amichia?
Amichia, yep.
Nailed it.
The Packers.
Yeah, and then 2018 you had Sanat and MVS. So that is the last one.
Yep. And then Mr. Andrew, what's practice like in the IPF? I don't know. It was outside and it was hot and I was not a fan. But I will say this, for the first time ever. So today was the first time I had been in the IPF lobby. And then after the press conference, I went in there and looked around the field, and not to get all mopey and sappy, but I'll tell you what, as a lifelong USF fan, that was a pretty freaking awesome moment. It was a surreal thing walking in that IPF and knowing that my contribution to the IPF getting built was singing the thong song at the 2017 Birmingham Bowl at a dive bar and helping donate like $3,000.
There you go. Do they have the plaque up anywhere?
No, the plaques are for $10,000 or more. So we were close, but not enough.
Make it honorary. Make it honorary.
Yeah, but that was, man. I can't wait till the stadium gets. I might cry.
I was going to say the stadium's going to be.
Stadium's
going to be interesting. They're going to put it on you.
Yeah,
emotional.
There's going to be a lot of emotions when
I think there's going to be a lot of people. It would seem pretty emotional.
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of people emotional when these renderings come out. I'm sure we're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
Does Mike White count?
Oh God, I love Mike White. I was at a wedding over the weekend and talked to him for 15 minutes, and it was amazing. Oh, I miss him so much. But no, he does not count because he was Western Kentucky, unfortunately. But
was Oladokin drafted?
He was not, but he's the Super Bowl champion.
And that's all that matters.
All that matters is 2 Sterling Gilbert disciples got a Super Bowl ring this year.
It's saying maybe he was a 7th round pick, 241. Is that true?
Oh, Chris, yeah, he was a 7th round pick by the Steelers. 7th round,
241. I mean, you count him, right?
Oh, I'll count him. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, yeah, I'm counting Chris.
There you go. So 2022 just happened. We're good.
Yes, yeah, we're fine, guys. It's totally cool. So what if he was at 2 different schools after us?
It's because he couldn't find one that satisfied him the way the USF did.
I don't know if it's that.
That's probably not that. That's right. It's a pipe. It's a pipeline.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, let's get out of here. Always a pleasure. Thank you for commenting, following along. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitch. Send us a screenshot. DM us at Stampede SBN on Twitter, or you can send it to one of us. We will send you an invite to the Discord. It is free up until fall camp.
Yeah. So if you're not quite sure where the Twitch is, what the Twitch is, I tweeted out a link to it tonight. So go on my Twitter page. I think the Daily Stampede Twitter page also retweeted it. So use that link, subscribe, take a screenshot, send it to the Daily Stampede direct messages. They will be open. Send it there. Send us proof. We'll send you an invitation, and then you have access to a bunch of good information, a pretty fun community. There's a lot of, it's mostly sports and USF related, but there's some pop culture. There's even a fit check channel where Steve is putting all his crop top pictures. So
wrestling, travel channel, dogs, beer, food recs, music, gaming, TV. I mean,
pretty much everything you need. So it's like Twitter without the trolls. And so far everybody's on their best behavior.
Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see how it gets when the season starts and people start losing games a little bit.
Yeah. No one's really been showing their ass, so that's been nice.
Except Steve might attempt to soon enough if we don't watch him on the Fit Check channel.
Yeah. So be sure to do that. Seth, as always, I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. For Seth and Nathan, this has been another glorious episode of the Bulluminati podcast. Spring football's back. Let's go. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.